Hi, I'm sitting outside because this is one of the last couple of days of warmth in Minnesota. It's gonna get very cold after this. But hello and welcome to this episode of Live N Let. In today's episode, we are going to explore a paper art form. I know we have explored one more paper art form called paper quilling, where it included cutting the paper into strips and gluing it together onto a surface to make various different beautiful shapes. For today's art form though, it's a continuous sheet of paper that's folded and it's called origami. It originated in Japan and many people have been doing this for a long time. I know a very, very good friend of mine who does this and who's been doing this since she was a little girl with her dad. And she's more like a sister to me than even a friend, and her name is Madhura. She doesn't live here in Minnesota anymore. She has moved to a different part of country. But in her old house in Minnesota here, she had all these origami projects folded and on her wall as hanging. It was a very interesting art form. It absolutely needs tremendous patience and skill and precision. I really wanted to invite her on this show. Welcome Madhura, and thank you for joining today's show.
Thank you so much, Neha, for making me a part of this. And I say that for a couple different reasons. Origami has always been special to me, and I feel like origami much the same way I feel like music, in that I'm going to be a student all my life. Anything I can do to share my love for origami is welcome, so thank you very much. But being a part of this also makes me feel like an honorary Minnesotan, which is very special to me as well. Where did I get started on origami? My answer is the same as almost each and every one of you, because every one of you has done origami at one point of time in your life. A paperboard. If you grew up in India and you did not fold one of these at the start of the monsoon, I don't know what you did. Paper planes? Who doesn't enjoy flying paper planes? And please don't tell me you've never folded one of these small fortune tellers in your time in school. When I was a little kid, for every Sankranti, I used to fold one of these boxes with my dad. As I grew up, origami was just another thing that I did as a reprieve from my very academic focused life. Origami has marked every milestone in my life. Whether it was the new house that I bought, or the first child that I had, or the second child that I had. But one thing that will always be special to me with origami is my relationship with my father. Growing up, he did it just because I did it. When I grew older and I had more time, I was more focused on origami. And now that he's retired and I have no time with 2 kids, he folds things like nobody's business. Ori in Japanese means folding, and kami is a kind of Japanese paper. So to do origami, all you need is a piece of paper and your bare hands. But as you start to fold more and more complex models, there are some pieces of equipment that can make your life just a little bit easier. Paper, like we said, is of course the very first thing you need. The other thing that I find useful is this thing called a bone folder, and what this can help you with is to strengthen your creases and reinforce them. Another useful tool that I find very useful in certain models like tessellations is the tip of this bone folder, which you can use to score a particular edge. For example, if you see this grid, you do want to fold this edge, fold this line, but not take the crease all the way to the ends. What you can do is you can just score it with your scorer. And if you see, the paper just naturally gives way, and there you have it, you have the fold. So not only do you have a stronger fold, but it's also crisper and more precise. Now let's get started with some of the basics of folding. Almost all origami diagrams you would see have 2 basic kinds of folds, a mountain fold and a valley fold. And the reason for that is natural. A valley fold looks like a valley on the side you're folding, and a mountain fold looks like a mountain. But let's get on to some of the more complex folds. This fold is called the outside reverse fold. As you will see, we bring the outside of the paper in. This is used a lot in creating tails for animals. And then we have the inside reverse fold, where we fold the paper inside. This fold is used to create legs for animals. This is one of my favorite folds. It's called a sink fold, and this is used to literally sink a corner inside. And this is used a lot in trying to make your shapes more natural and in not having sharp corners in your models. It just goes on and on. You can have swivel folds, squash folds, petal folds, you name it. Most origami tutorials would start with the base, and it's basically just a set of folds that you already make to a square sheet of paper as a beginning of your model. This is a water bomb base. This is called a frog base. And this is a bird base. Now let's make a couple of models with the bird base and the frog base. Starting with the bird base, you can fold one of the most recognizable origami models, and that's the crane. The crane has a special significance in Japanese culture. A legend suggests that if you fold 1,000 cranes, any of your wishes will be granted. And there you have it. Interestingly, my favorite thing to fold starting with the frog base is not a frog, but a lily. This is one of the easiest origami flowers to fold. I just wanted to share with you some of the models that I have folded over the years to give you an idea of the whole wide range of origami that you can explore. The one thing that I love to fold is butterflies. One of my biggest recent obsession has been this thing called tessellation. Tessellation is a geometric concept which is basically saying the same pattern that repeats over and over and over again. And this, believe it or not, is a single sheet of paper about this big that's been collapsed to look like this. Or like this. One of the things that kids love the most is origami that moves. This fireworks is one of my absolute favorites. Modular origami is something I took to quite late. I just didn't think I had the patience to put together 30 individual units to make this ball. Again, held together just by paper folds. I could bounce it around and it won't break. Here's another one. And then a whole lot of ones that I made into a mobile for my son when he was an infant. Getting started on origami today is easier than ever. When I was growing up and first starting to fold origami models, books was pretty much the only resource. And the books would have diagrams like these. There are several origami databases online that have a lot of diagrams for different models. There are also journals published by origami societies in Europe, in US, and all over the world. And of course, there are books. You can never replace books. Happyfolding.com by Sarah Adams is definitely hands down one of the best sites for beginners. Not only because she has wonderful video tutorials, but she also has some diagrams and everything categorized by level of difficulty, the time it takes, and things like that. So based on all the years that I have indulged in origami, if there's a few things I would like to share with you, the very first one would be this. Precision is everything. When you're folding, every single fold that you make, pay attention to it and make it precise. If you noticed, I wasn't super precise in my performance anxiety, and you can see the bites showing through. So it does make a difference to your final model. Another important thing to remember is anytime you're trying to choose a model to fold, select it based on your own skill level and based on the amount of time you have in hand. To illustrate that, This is an origami turtle. It's a beginner level model. It took me 5 minutes to fold it. And this is also an origami turtle. This one took me about half an hour to fold it, and I would say it's about intermediate skill. So if you start to fold this to begin with, you'll just end up getting frustrated. Another very important thing that I used to get very frustrated with is the kind of paper that you use. So often I would come to the end of a model and my paper would rip, and it was heartbreaking. Just remember to explore different types of paper. You can start with magazines, newspapers, printer paper, whatever you want. Just explore. And this, according to me, is the most important thing. Whenever you fold a model, make it a point to go and try and find out who the original designer of the model was and give credit where credit's due. From airbags to solar panels for satellites, from architecture to original pieces of art, origami has found its own canvas in today's world. But I hope that at the end of this talk, if there's one thing you could take away, is that you can make origami whatever you want it to be for yourself. And if after listening to me for 10 minutes, if even one of you goes and Googles that one YouTube video and folds that one model, I'll call it a success. Thanks.